Good evening, this is Mr. Wintermelon. So we have come to the last video of your O-level biology syllabus, which is all about conservation. What are the issues that humans have caused and method to reduce the impact. So by the end of this last video, you should be able to discuss the reason for conservation of species with reference to the maintenance of biodiversity and how this is done. For example, management of fishery as well as timber production. So the conservation side, we are just going to focus on these two. The fishing industry as well as the forest industry. But first, let us go into what is the definition of conserving biodiversity. Conservation itself is the protection and preservation of natural resources in the environment. While biodiversity is nothing new, refers to the range of species that are present in a particular ecosystem. So when an ecosystem has many different species of animal, we say that the ecosystem have a rich biodiversity. And it is important to conserve them because firstly, it prevents the extinction of species. Having a large or diverse gene pool will prevent the species from being wiped out by a sudden disease. This is nothing new. We have learned about this in the chapter of reproduction in plant. But it does not just occur in plant, it also occurs in animal as well. So if you have a population that is very small, the chance of them interbreeding and passing on recessive gene that is detrimental to them will be high. So having a large gene pool will reduce the chance of that happening, and hopefully if a disease were to strike, some of them will be able to survive because they have some unique genes because of variation. Different species are connected by food web and has symbiotic relationship. For example, the fig wasp. So a change in the population of one species will impact the rest. So as you can see from the diagram on the right, the wasp actually lays its egg, and when the larvae hatch and come out from the fig, it will help to pollinate the fig. So the fig and the fig wasp depends on each other for their next generation. If one becomes extinct, the other will also become extinct. The next reason is to allow stability. It is to prevent disruption to our carbon cycle, especially if we do not protect our forests as well as the plant in the ocean. Because green plants are our only source of carbon dioxide absorbance. Carbon dioxide being a greenhouse gas causes global warming, and the change in global temperature will lead to more extreme weather conditions. However, you should take note that global warming is somewhat misleading. It doesn't mean that every place it will become hotter. Some places they will actually experience more rain, and as a result, flooding. So weather will become more unpredictable and more extreme, and as a result, some organisms might not be able to adapt quick enough. In other words, evolution just does not keep up with the rapid change in weather condition for them to survive. And if they become extinct, again, it will disrupt the food chain or the food web. The next two reasons is related to human, how we can benefit from the diversity. So wild plants might produce compounds which have medicinal properties, and some organisms might produce compounds of useful property. So for example, spider web, even though they are thin, they are very strong, even stronger than steel. So if we can find a way to make use of them, it will definitely benefit us. So if we can find a way to produce this compound in the spider silk, it will definitely benefit us. The next reason is very direct, it's for economic purposes. The wildlife is a source of food. For example, the fish that we catch, if we overfish them, we will not have any more fish to eat. The forest is a source of raw material in the form of timber. And let's not forget, natural scenery is a form of tourism where we can go and unwind from the stressful city life. So these are just some of the reasons why we should conserve our environment. But despite the importance of our biodiversity, we are still doing harm to our environment. Beside the pollution that we learned in the two previous videos, human activities have also led to the following problems. At least for your O-level syllabus, just take it as two: deforestation and overfishing. Deforestation causes soil erosion, leading to flooding. Without the trees, there will not be roots to absorb the rainwater, and as a result, the rain will wash the soil, leading to soil erosion. If the soil is being washed down to a lower area, those lower areas will have a puddle of soil, which will affect the flow of water, and this will cause flooding in low-lying area where the soil have eroded because they have caused a mini dam to be formed. Deforestation also leads to desertification because no plants means no producer in a food chain, and sooner or later that area will become a desert. And of course, it leads to climate change as mentioned earlier on, global warming and so on. So because of this, we need to conserve forests. How do we do this? First is the most direct method, that is reforestation. Planting trees to replace trees that have been removed or cut. Have law to prevent cutting and hunting activities in the forest. So these two measurements will prevent the reduction in the number of trees due to human activities. Next, we can check regularly for pests and disease to prevent the forest from dying due to natural causes. And lastly, we can also research on how to make the area more productive. For example, if an area is suitable for the growth of trees, how can we make it better? How can we make more trees to grow in that area? Or how can we make the tree bigger and larger? So research can be done to improve on the productivity of forests. So research can be done to improve on that. Now, you might think that quite a lot to memorize, but like I said, understanding is more important. So first, we think of how to prevent the reduction in number. That means you have law to prevent people from cutting them down, as well as you plant more trees. Then next is to prevent them from dying due to natural causes. So we have regular checkup on them. Then we think of methods to make tree grows taller and bigger. And this can be done through research. Next, let us look at uncontrolled fishing. Commercial fishing has leads to indiscriminate catching of marine life. Indiscriminate, that means you don't really care. Maybe your target is just fish, but you end up catching turtle, jellyfish, and other marine life, which you might throw back into the sea, but they will die because of all the trauma that they have experienced. So example of indiscriminate fishing are the use of drift nets, as well as shrimp and prawn trawlers. So they are basically nets which are being dragged along by boats, and they will trap any marine life that come into contact with them. Some of them might not be your intended target because they might not be really edible. So as a result, those endangered fish might get caught and would die in the process. Another example of indiscriminate fishing is the use of scallop dredge. So what it does is it will scrape the sea floor for what else but scallop. But in the process, unintended target, in this case coral reef, might get caught and get injured, but most of them will die. And this is also applicable to other marine creatures that got caught in the drift net, as well as prawn trawler. Even though they might be thrown back into the sea, they would have suffered too much injury, leading to their death. Another practice is cyanide fishing. This is the stunning of fish and catching them to be sold as pet. Cyanide are explosive. While they might not kill the pet wannabe, it will kill the coral reefs as well as other organisms. So this will destroy the ecosystem. So uncontrolled fishing has led to young fish being caught before they can reproduce. Old fish, if they reproduce already, they might be ready to die, so catching them is actually okay. But if you catch the young fish before they can replenish the population, it will lead to the decrease in population of fish. And as mentioned, those marine organisms that was unintentionally caught mostly doesn't survive. And all of these activities will lead to the decrease in population and the eventual extinct of those marine organisms. Therefore, we need to do something about this. First of all, what we can do is to regulate the fishing ships. Control the number of ships that can enter the fishing grounds and limit the time they can spend at that area. So both of these will ensure not too many fish will be caught. Then we can regulate the fishing methods. We can ban drifting nets, and if those nets are being used, we ensure that the mesh has hole that is large enough for immature fish to not get caught. So they will just swim through the hole. But if you ask me, this is not exactly a smart method, because this will lead to the selection of small yet mature fish. And as a result, the size of fish will actually decrease due to this artificial selection. So if you ask me, this is quite a dumb method, probably someone that do not know how evolution works. So these two measurements got to deal with your regular fish. How about those fish that are endangered? We can ban fishing of endangered species, which is easy for me to say because it is from your textbook. And we can raise endangered species of fish in hatcheries. When they are matured, then we release them back into the wild. Because for marine creature, actually the first few years of their life is where most of them will meet their end. Not as much survive into the adulthood, but once they do, most likely they are able to reproduce. So this will be all for the content of your O-level bio syllabus. Do watch out for bonus video that will be added, not just for this chapter, but also other chapters.